Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Oh, well, Leafs fans, I hope you had a better night than the Leafs did because they just got their show run by a normally shambolic Pittsburgh Penguins team that has not been good so far this season. They give up as many power play goals as they give up shorthanded goals. It seemed like a close game until basically 5 minutes into the third period. It kind of went back and forth all night. It seemed a lot like the Penguins were able to bury a lot of chances that the Leafs simply weren't able to. We are going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about the special teams, like I said, and we are going to talk about that Max Patchoretty did have his first game back after being out 10 games to injury. Going to talk about all the people coming back, and we're going to talk all about that with my new friend Ruby on the other hand side of the screen. So Ruby, just talking about, introduce yourself quickly, and then why don't you tell me what you saw in tonight's game?
I'm Ruby. I'm a broadcasting student, currently my third year. Kind of just getting into the hockey network here. This is my first live stream, so bear with me. Tonight watching the game, I thought it was a strong first period. I really thought, regardless of kind of the score in the first, I did think they had good shots and everything, but going into the second and third, it just kind of choked up a bit, and I think that's what we're going to have a little conversation about here. So
Yeah, it was definitely, that first period, like you said, even though they go into the first intermission, down by one, they were leading in shots now. That did get adjusted after the first intermission, back down to 8 after the break. But they give up a power play early. There was a unfortunate goal by a Grizzly tip with, about 4.5 minutes into the first period, which is always a tough way to start. But Mitch Marner gets his 10th goal of the season less than 2 minutes after that. So they tied it up quick. It felt a lot like, if Pittsburgh was going to have these opportunities and score on them, that the Leafs weren't going to go away without a fight. At least that's how it felt in the first period. There was a lot of line mixing because we did have Max Patchoretty back in the lineup, and it really felt a lot. Ruby, if you watched the game last night, I'm sure that you felt that the Leafs were just a little bit disjointed. Their passing wasn't exactly where we would normally hope for it to be, and it seemed like they really struggled with that tonight too. What do you think?
watching the game last night and tonight, I saw that they had a lot of issues with the giveaways and takeaways, and they're passing. Like I saw at one point, I think it was Tavares, he passed back and just straight to Pittsburgh. I think that was in the second, and I kind of just saw that they didn't have like almost like their memorized lines and positions in their heads anymore. And kind of the mix-ups with the lineups have gotten, I think, a little bit in the way of what the Leafs had been building, especially at the start of the season. And now going into kind of getting towards the Christmas break here and everything, things are picking back up in a way that I don't think the Leafs are enjoying.
And it not only they're not enjoying it, it seems like they're not prepared. It's funny, like we have, 6 of our forwards out for a number of games all in a row. And in that time the Leafs were really able to like kind of hunker down and push through it. And now that we're getting guys back, it seems like they almost don't know how to cope with it. Like you said, the line mashups tonight, like there were lines tonight that we haven't seen any other time in the season, which okay, that happens, but when it's someone's first game back, and we're going to talk about Patchoretty separately, but when it's someone's first game back, you don't necessarily expect them to be put on the top line right away. And on top of that, like the Frankenstein line of there were a number of Frankenstein lines, but like the Holmberg, Minton, and Alex Nylander line really struggled tonight. I think that's the first time that those guys have actually played together in that kind of situation, at least recently. And that line got hemmed in a number of times tonight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that I know that the Leafs have definitely relied on Nylander a lot at certain times in their seasons last year too, but I don't think that tonight was a good show of Nylander's skills with the lineup he was put in. I definitely think that the Leafs need to readjust what they've got going up with their lines, and especially going into those penalties, which I know we're going to talk about, the players that they choose to put on the ice, and just like teams know what to expect. And I don't think that the Leafs have been putting out their lines the way that they should be.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like Berube so far has made pretty good choices up until now, after big moments, after big kills, after big, line rushes, where he is putting out like the other lines that the bottom two lines that we wouldn't necessarily see. Having said that, a lot of the penalties that were taken tonight, I think really impacted who they were able to put out on the ice, because a bunch of their PKs are on the bottom lines. Now, when the Leafs were able to get a penalty kill, a lot of times they did follow it up with a very nice, first line shift. But there were a number of opportunities tonight that Pittsburgh had as a result of that third, fourth line it was on the ice tonight. They just could not get the puck back from Pittsburgh. There was a number of times from all of the lines where Pittsburgh was cycling the puck and the Leafs would get it right at the half wall, and then they simply couldn't get it clear. And then it would lead to more opportunities for Pittsburgh, causing a lot of flurry in front of the net. Now, Joseph Woll saved a couple of them, but the fact of the matter is Pittsburgh buried more of them than the Leafs did. Obviously, the big difference here is the special teams that we are going to talk about in the second period. But at 5-on-5 tonight, it really felt like the Leafs were still continuing to struggle to find each other, to make good reads, make good passes, and be able to seize upon the opportunities when they get them. I don't know how many attempted breakaways Nylander got tonight. I think it was at least 3. He doesn't bury any of them, and in a perfect world, you would love to see him bury one, but the fact of the matter is he does score later on in the game to tie it up at the beginning of the second period. A really nice one-timer from across the crease. Again, that's on the power play. So, the Leafs essentially are able to get one goal at 5-on-5. They've really struggled with 5-on-5 offense the last week or so, and that's before Matthews even came back. Now, Matthews' third game back, what did you think of his play tonight?
Honestly, I was a little concerned when Matthews was coming back to the lineup for the same reason we have just discussed, is how the team is going to take his return. Because I knew that Toronto was not doing too horrible with his absence. Mm-hmm. But his third game back, I did think that he showed a lot of power, and he did have a good lead with the team. But just, once again, getting in there in a way that was actually what the team needed, and not just scrambling when it comes to what really counts. They just came up short, and Matthews just needs to be where he needs to be a little more. And these lines, once again, it's just, they need to figure out where they're putting these guys back in when they do come back. And I think that with Patchoretty coming back, and now Matthews also with his third game back, they just need to figure out what they can do together to make everything go equally throughout the whole game.
Yeah, because it's, even in the last few minutes before they take the penalty, there were a number of really good opportunities that the Leafs were able to essentially drive into the offensive zone and establish zone time, which is something they really struggled with all night. I actually went to the Toronto Scepters game this afternoon, so I've watched a lot of hockey today. But weirdly enough, the Scepters also had a really hard time not even just gaining the zone, but maintaining possession for more than one ring around the boards. And so it's, I don't think it's necessarily something in the water, but it's just interesting that it doesn't feel like it's just a one-off with the Leafs of this happening, where they're having a hard time establishing offensive dominance at 5-on-5. And I think there was a stat that they said earlier. No, not a stat, but it seems like when they are losing these games recently, they're barely scoring a goal or two. The Leafs have already been shut out, twice this year? And they having not been shut out for something like 360 something games before that. It seems like on the games that they're winning, they're able to score a lot. And it's kind of troubling that going into, hopefully the playoffs, with a team that is either really good offensively and able to bury the puck, we're not losing games where we're scoring a lot. There's no 6-5 games where we just barely lose or we make it to overtime. It just feels like the Leafs are really having a hard time fighting back at 5-on-5, and the penalties tonight really didn't help that either. So
yeah, honestly, yeah. Just to add on to that, I feel like just watching the game, they had so much momentum, I feel, in the first, regardless of being a point behind, and I just felt like that momentum trailed off almost as soon as the second period started. They did have, I feel, okay time in the offensive zone, but they just couldn't keep it in their own possession. But when it gets back into their own zone, it's just their defense almost scrambles, and I feel like Wool was almost taking the brunt of it all, and it just came up short at times where he just couldn't keep up and pick up the slack for the rest of the defense.
Yeah, it definitely felt a lot like there was a lot of flurries in front of the net tonight. And that's, I mean, obviously a bunch of those go in for Pittsburgh, but like you said, the defense so far this season has been pretty good in terms of managing who's in front of their own net and not allowing those rebounds to bounce around as much as it did tonight. And again, that happened last night as well. I mean, we only lose 3-1 to Washington last night, but a number of the opportunities from both tonight and last night were a result of the defense not being flat-footed, but the rest of the team not necessarily forechecking as hard as the other team. One of the things I really noticed about Pittsburgh's PK tonight was that they were super aggressive against the Leafs. Like, super hard into forechecking. If you had the puck, someone was coming at you. Whereas when the Leafs were on the PK tonight, there was a lot of time just kind of spent 15 feet away with your stick in one hand doing this. You know what I mean? So let's, since we are so biting at the chomp to get to the special teams, let's really quickly transition over to the second period. But before we do that, we need to talk about the fact that Game Over has a flagship show called Hyperdrive Hockey, and it is hosted on the Game Over Network main channel. We cover everything in all hockey leagues across all over the world, whatever it is and wherever it is. Max, Daphne, and Kev have you covered for all of your hockey news with a steady dose of humor and good fun and fan engagement. Like I said, you can find Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network main channel, so please make sure you go give that a listen. It's my favorite thing to actually listen to on my morning commute, aside from the other Game Over channels, but it's nice getting sort of league-wide and sport-wide news from all over. They talked about the Trouba trade the other day. They talked about, everything that's going on with every team. They don't discriminate based on what color jersey you have. So make sure you go check out that, and make sure you hit like and subscribe on this stream. Make sure it's Ruby's first time, guys. Make sure we give her a little bit of extra love. So let's talk about, like I said, since we were biting at the chomping at the bit. I can't get my euphemisms right tonight. Let's talk about the Leafs special teams. Now, to start off the stream, I mentioned the horrifying fact that not only did they give up 2 power play goals, they give up 2 shorthanded empty net goals against Pittsburgh with 2 minutes and 13 seconds left when they finally get a third power play going their way. I mean, up until that point, the power plays were 5 for Pittsburgh and 2 for the Leafs. They finally get one. They get the mythical last 2 minutes of play, power play, and they could not have whiffed on it more than they did. Ruby, how painful was that for you, knowing you had to come on the stream and we were going to talk about it?
Especially it being my first stream, knowing that the Leafs lost, especially watching the end of that period there, I was very disappointed to see, especially with them having that last penalty or power play, I just don't know what happened there. It's like I was saying, their momentum completely dropped. And it's like, even though they were given the opportunity to make some moves, the momentum was already gone. There was no saving it. And watching those 2 goals go right into the net, it was painful.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate start to our video chat at the very end of the game there. And the special teams haunted them all night. I mean, to your point, just before we moved into the second period, you very eloquently talked about the fact that they had so much energy and so much, it felt like they had some momentum going into the second period. And, they actually get a power play, essentially a minute and 20 seconds in. William Nylander gets an unbelievable one-timer right over Tristan Jarry. Oh my gosh, was it so just, it was beautiful. And then what happens immediately following that is Max Patchoretty, fresh off of his injury return, takes back-to-back penalties. And despite the fact that in that second penalty, Toronto actually gets a power play and they have about 55 seconds of 4-on-4 hockey, that double PK really felt like it just took the wind completely out of their sails, and their boat battery died at the same time.
Yeah, I will have to say, I immediately was like, what are you doing, Patchoretty? Like, just penalties that were unnecessary, and definitely could have been avoided. And it's like, I don't know what he's thinking with his return to go and do that to his team. But I mean, that's the choices he made tonight. And unfortunately, I do think it really took a toll on Toronto in a way that they just could not get back from. And I just don't think they knew what to do with it. It was definitely an odd little balance of penalty kill versus penalty or power play there for a minute, and I just don't think they had it in their heads to really think it through in a way that they could actually benefit from and grab a goal and make any sort of difference there. And then going into the third, it just got messy.
Yeah. I mean, last year the Pittsburgh Penguins power play was nothing to write home about. And so far this year, their offense has not been anything to write home about either. So, having said that, going into the beginning of this game, they get a power play early, essentially 5 minutes in, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are able to bury on the first power play opportunity that they get quite quickly into that power play. So, you've already started the game going down by a power play goal, and then you take a number of egregious penalties after that. And despite the fact that they didn't actually, score a goal in essentially what is 4 minutes of 5-on-4 for Pittsburgh, it really just looked like it just took too much of a toll on them, and they were struggling to get back the power control the rest of the game. Despite the fact that they had so much 5-on-5 time for the rest of the game, it felt like they were down a mount for so much of the second and third period. It was really hard to watch. Like it felt like as soon as they would clear the puck even a little bit, the Pittsburgh Penguins were turning it around right in the middle of the neutral zone and being able to put it back in and not only keep possession but have sustained pressure for minutes at a time. And it just the Leafs weren't able to dominate and get it going the other way and have that same quality amount of time in the other team's zone. So it was a rough team for the special team, rough night for the special teams tonight. I mean, Patches takes 2 penalties, Nyes takes a penalty at the beginning, and then even Matthews gets a high stick, and then Alex Nylander also takes a penalty in the third period. Again, the third period penalty by Matthews, the Pittsburgh Penguins score on, and what happens? Literally like 8 minutes later, Alex Nylander takes another penalty. Like, you're already 2 for 4 on the night here, fellas, and you're continuing to take more penalties. It's just irresponsible, and it's desperation in a non-productive way. If you're going to be desperate and you're going to actually make plays and connect a pass, for the love of God, then great. Use it as a good thing. But it just felt like the more time went on, the more the Leafs their desperation was obvious, and Pittsburgh just feasted on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I honestly think, like, looking back on Toronto's past and especially going into playoffs, they are not aggressive enough when it comes to, like, especially compared to Pittsburgh. Like, Pittsburgh is very aggressive with their hits, and they're willing to do it in a way that might not really get them a penalty. But Toronto, they were like just taking penalties in those top players that you really need in those last moments, especially tied up, or not tied up, sorry, close to being tied up. Just letting those big players go and get penalties and sit on the box, and then you don't know where to go from there. And it was definitely just not good planning and not a good performance. That third period, it was desperate, and it was not planned, not thought out, and it was, in the end, not successful.
Yeah, and despite the fact that, essentially at the beginning of the third period, Bunting scores because, of course, it ends up being the game-winning goal. Not long after that, Nyes hits a really, really, really close post that I actually thought was in. I was, like, waiting for the horn to go off for probably, like, 20 seconds. And then, they show the replay. It goes off the side post. But it really felt like that was the last opportunity the Leafs had. And once those pucks that in the last few games have been going in for them, and they had that puck luck, like, that game the other day where Mitch essentially banks it off of the other team's player. There has been a lot of games in recent memory where the Leafs have these crazy bounces that go their way. And then tonight it just felt like one of those nights where the bounces weren't going your way. And it was like they let it get to them, and they just sort of stopped believing, and they started believing in the bad luck, and they just weren't able to get rid of it. To end the third period the way that they do, going into the third period, they take 2 penalties. They haven't had a penalty called their way until essentially, 7 minutes into the second period. They don't get another power play opportunity after that until there's 2 minutes and 13 seconds left. You are down by 1 goal. And just before that, there was an unbelievable save by Joseph Wall on Evgeny Malkin, where Gino is skating, and I was like, oh, please don't let him score this because the roof might actually blow off the building. It didn't. He makes a big save, and normally in the last couple of games, the Leafs have been able to build off that momentum and cause the puck to go the other way and actually put it in the back of the net. And instead, they get a penalty. Rusk takes a high stick with 2:13 to go, and they just like, give me a couple awful adjectives for that power play because it was just atrocious. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, honestly, it was. I don't understand the rush and the desperation so soon in that third period when they were only a point off. It's like they thought that all hope was gone before hope was even close to being gone, and they did have the nice opportunity. I was like, why wouldn't you get more of a boost from that? And I feel like they just, the puck was bouncing around way too much in front of the net, something that they have not really been experiencing the last few of their games. And when that comes about, they just don't know what to do with it, and they just let go, and they do leave it to luck.
Yeah, and they leave it to Letang to end up getting the final goal of the evening. The Leafs end up losing 5-2 in a game that, again, until the last essentially 10 minutes of the third period was completely winnable. But it was too much. It was essentially that as soon as they go down 3-2, the wind just goes out of their sails. And despite the fact that they do get a power play opportunity, it was like they were all just too excited about it. And they were just, everybody wanted to be the guy. That's what it felt like. They couldn't really connect a pass. In the couple of times that they were able to gain the zone, their passing was so predictable to the point where Ruby, for the very first time, got to experience the fact that I could tell you what's going to happen on the Leafs power play without looking at the damn screen, because I know it's going to happen. Liam Nylander's going to get it. He's going to pass it to Marner. Marner's going to pass to Matthews, going to pass to Marner, who's going to take a shot on goal, and it's going to go out. And it literally, I said it, and it happened. And Ruby was like, made this face like, oh, that's interesting. And then it happened again because they gained the zone, and it was so awful to watch. It was so bad to watch. To get a power play, to be handed a Christmas present, okay? And it's pretty, and it's green with gold ribbon and a nice fancy tag, like with the wire ones that actually stay and your cats can't steal them off. For them to take that and then essentially, like, use it to water a plant. Like, I would rather have watched gardening videos than the last 3 minutes of that game. Because it was just friggin' atrocious. Oh, my gosh. Like, I turned it off before the last buzzer went off because I couldn't deal with it. And I'm pretty sure you did the same, Ruby, did you?
Yeah, the game was off before I could hear the crowd start cheering. I did not need to relish in those moments, definitely. You watch it, it's like watching a highlight reel. You don't need to see it again.
Nope.
And you calling the passing and what's exactly gonna happen is things we've seen time and time again with the Leafs, and that's why maybe they were trying to mix up the lines a bit tonight, see what results they could get, but then they just got desperate again, like in that third period, and just back to the old ways.
Yeah, like if you're gonna be the kind of coach that line mixes all the time, that's fine. We've had that with Sheldon Keefe. Keefe couldn't go a game last year without pulling out a blender. He loved smoothies. And so far, it doesn't seem like Berube is on the same level of line blending as Keefe has been. And it's been nice to see him actually stick with lines. And to your point, it does kind of feel like as these players are coming back, and they are coming back, which is great. We've been down so many players, offense and defense, for so long now, that getting all these players back, we're struggling to figure out who's going to go where. And tonight, we're going to move into right now we're going to move into the third period and talk about somebody who did come back tonight in Max Patchoretty. But again, that third line tonight, despite the fact that Patchoretty played his best hockey so far, on the second line with Tavares, they decide that, like, Nyes is going to be down with Tavares, which isn't somewhere that he normally plays. And they're going to put Patches with Matthews and Marner, and it was a whole lot of weird. So let's talk about the man who returned tonight, Max Patchoretty. But before we do that, we are really quickly going to talk about the Game Over Network as an individual production company that is focused on community, inclusion, and quality people. So if you're interested in actually joining our team, or if you are interested in supporting us, we have all kinds of crowdfunding options available. If you go to the bottom, if you click on the little description down below, we have Patreon info. We have information for the LaRouche company, which is where we've started a our crowdfunding. So if you have a couple dollars, it would make us a very Merry Christmas if you could go and help us out. As soon as we do that, we raise as much money as our goal, which is $15,000. We're going to have access to all kinds of government grants to make things a little bit better here at Game Over and give us access to more stuff and to make this a better product for you. So if you have any questions, or if you have any sponsorship ideas, anything like that, please send an email to the people down below. We would love to have our company continue to grow as much as it has in the last year so far. And you sending even a penny would do a lot. So thank you already in advance. And if you have donated, and if you haven't, again, it would be great if you could. And if you can't afford it, then that's okay. The least thing you can do is hit the like button, which is right down here. If you could hit subscribe, which is right over here, right below Ruby's pretty chin, and then share it with another Leafs fan that you like. Or maybe you're sneakily a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. In which case, please make sure you follow all of the Game Over networks, because we do this live stream after every single game of all of the Canadian markets, and there's a lot of teams, and everybody plays Pittsburgh, so make sure you go check those out, and thank you in advance if you already have. So let's talk about the man that returned today, Max Patchoretty. He's been gone 10 games. Ruby, how did you think his return went?
Honestly, a little brutally honest, I think that Patchoretty was the thing that disrupted Toronto's momentum tonight. I think that he was valuable within the first and a little bit into the second. I don't think that he created any issues. I think he really was valuable, and he did bring back that veteran presence on the team. Same with Matthews being back for the last 3 games, and I think that the team started off strong because of that, kind of knowing that they had him in their pocket tonight. But then when they realized what was going on there in the second, I think that's what broke the momentum of the team, and they just did not know where to go from there. And Patchoretty was not as valuable as he seemed to them at the start of the game tonight.
And at the beginning of the season, when he came in, we all were kind of apprehensive. Were you as well? Yeah. I mean, he has a long injury history, so it's not entirely surprising that we got essentially 15 games in before he got hurt. But he does come back tonight. In that short amount of time that he did start with the team, he was pretty effective on that second line. When he was paired with Tavares and Marner, boy, was that line just surprisingly great in terms of their offense, in terms of their defense, in terms of how quickly they got that chemistry and how quickly they did bond together. I was so confused, and I honest to goodness thought more than once tonight that the team was just mid-change, because I couldn't figure out why you would bring Max Patchoretty back and put him on the top line, which with players he hasn't played with so far this season, and on the line that's going to get the most attention from the other team. Like, I don't know where that decision comes from.
Yeah, I honestly, I can't get over the fact that the lineup meshing tonight was atrocious, really. Like, and it was a mess. It confused the players. It confused us. And I couldn't really figure out at the start where Patchoretty fit in. But I like, once again, I didn't think he was an issue there. But just going into the second, I don't think they were as used to what they have been. And bringing these players back, you got to do it in a way that's going to not disrupt too much too soon. And they just put him in a place that he could make the biggest disruption possible, basically, and that's what happened.
Yeah, it definitely felt like they put him in an unwinnable position. Unless you're going to be stellar right out of the gate and like the winning fastest horse, fabulous. He just had more games off than Matthews, and Matthews had reduced ice time the last 2 games. It makes no sense to me that they would put him in that position. Like, on top of that, even if we take Max Patchoretty out of the picture, of all the people that you move, you're going to move Nyes off of the top line, who has been so phenomenal to start this season. Like, it felt like a weird, like, I know it's not a demotion because it's like line 1A and 1B, but like, he's been so great with Marner while Matthews was out, and on his own, he's been a force of nature. And it felt so wrong seeing him with John Tavares on that line. Like, it made me physically uncomfortable.
Yeah, honestly, I loved seeing how Nyes got along with Marner during Matthews' absence, and I really thought that watching that and watching where he was in the lineups was what kind of was the little answer that the team was looking for, and that's why I was so concerned with Matthews' return, just seeing what that was going to do with Nyes and Marner's relationship there, because Marner and Matthews, they tie into one another, and just needing to see how that placement was going to go. And you could not have told me in a million years that Patchoretty coming on would be the disruption in that. Like, I would have never assumed that they would have put him on that lineup and moved Nyes, seeing how successful he has been with Marner. And like, I know that they definitely see Patchoretty's like adding some depth to the team, but it's just too soon to really make that call. And yeah, they did put him in a position where there's no way he could prove how high they were putting him.
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, even when he was like straight healthy right out of training camp and was like, oh yeah, I'm good to go. Even when he was the most healthy he's been so far this season, he wasn't on the top line. So like, where does that decision come through? Like, it just, I don't know, maybe we just don't get paid enough to understand what the concept of this is. But, you know, we talk about players that were coming back and were out tonight. A quiet little thing that we didn't talk about at all so far this episode is the fact that Alex Nylander drew in for Nick Robertson, who was a healthy scratch tonight. What did you think of Alex Nylander's game, despite, I mean, obviously he took a penalty, but what did you think of his game tonight?
I honestly don't think that his performance was anything too overly spectacular or overly horrible. Kind of just like a middle line performance, and I don't think that, I mean, regardless of the penalty, I mean, I don't think that it really took too much of a horrific toll on the team. I know Robinson was actually showing a lot of like promise with the team, and I did not think that he could have been a healthy scratch tonight. I like him on the team, and I really wanted to see where he could go, but so be it, I guess.
I mean, we're not the ones that make the coaching decisions, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now before we move on and talk even more about this, please make sure you put your questions down in the chat. We're going to be getting to our overtime period in just a couple of minutes here. If you have any questions for me or Ruby or anything that you want us to talk about, please make sure you get those questions down in the chat. So, really quickly, I do want to talk about the fact that David W. What's up, David? Welcome back to the chat. Expanding on my last pairing of posts, such games have come when the Leafs have scored the most 2 goals in a given game. Patchoretty had a rather flat performance, was a ±0, and John Tavares was a -2. So it really seemed like that whole second line really struggled tonight. I do think that Patchoretty is a better player to play with Tavares. I would be shocked if they don't put them back together. Again, like, if we think about before people got hurt, that top line of Nyes, Matthews, Nylander was so good. And then the second line of Patchoretty, Tavares, Marner was again so good. And it just, the math doesn't math on why on his return you would put him in a situation where he's not playing on the line he played before. And it just, again, the compounding problem tonight and the overarching storyline in tonight's game was that they had a really hard time with their chemistry and connecting passes. And you have to, part of that has to be the fact that you're right, and Patchoretty's return and placement did completely, like, you know, throw an entire jar of nutmeg into the stew.
Mm-hmm. I definitely, I like, we don't know what's been going on with the practices and everything with them. I don't know where they were having Patchoretty during this, or how much practice time he has been getting with the team since his return. But like, I almost felt like, especially watching Tavares tonight, I saw that he definitely was putting pressure on Pittsburgh, and I did enjoy seeing what Tavares was doing tonight, but I didn't think anyone was there for him, was the issue. And you almost saw him when he was getting close to the net second guessing, because he realized he didn't have people around him, and he was really like stuttering with his shots, and you could see it clearly. And like overall these lineups, like, oh, this game could have just been so much better, and that's what's getting me tonight. Is it was so close for so long, and you could almost see it just in how the players were reacting, that they were expecting those people to be there when they weren't, and something was off.
Yeah, it was definitely, I saw the exact same thing that you did. There were a couple of opportunities tonight where Tavares did take a second longer than he normally would, and he didn't have as much support as he has had in the last 10 games while these other players have been off sick. And so, again, just a compounding problem on top of all that. John Tavares has been far and away probably the most consistent good player so far in this stretch of 27 games into the Leaf season, which is not what we all had on our bingo cards, right? Like, we weren't expecting Tavares to be as dominant as he's been so far this season. And part of that has been that he has been put in a position to succeed because of the line mates that he's had, regardless of who's in or out of the lineup. So, again, it just felt like not only was Patches not put into a position to succeed, the rest of the team really wasn't either, because it's not just one adjustment, it's multiple. You take Robertson out, you put Nylander in. Ryan Reeves comes back in the last couple of games as well. Now he's lower in the lineup, but the last several games, at the beginning of the week, where we had these different people up, like, are you really going to tell me that Nikita Grabenkin isn't better than Ryan Reeves at hockey right now?
Yeah, no, honestly, like, whatever Toronto's doing, is I don't think it's the time to test out these lineups. It's definitely not the time to test out player skills in a game where it shouldn't have turned out in that outcome. And I feel like the team could have made those calls before even putting those people on ice. That's how, like, I feel like all the players on Toronto right now, you can kind of read them in a way that you know what's going to happen. So I don't know why we're guessing and checking and then doing it again.
Yeah. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And for the Leafs play to be as predictable as it was, regardless of what the matchups were, if we can figure that out, mere podcasters, humble podcasters, how much game tape do you think the other team has been watching? Like, they don't have a snowflake's chance in hell with the amount of consistency and identical plays that they run game in and game out. Now, I did notice tonight that on the power plays that the Leafs did get, I don't think they did the double drop back pass once. Thank goodness. But there were a number, instead they gave up 2 shorthanded goals with an extra player on the ice. So it really feels like the haunted monkey's paw. We want more penalties, and then we get one and we give up 2 shorthanded goals. It was rough.
Honestly, that was so brutal to watch with that extra player and everything. Like, I feel like there's times in the year where Toronto almost seems like we have like a little hope, and you're like, maybe this is a well-rounded team. And then something as simple as bringing a player back from an injury who you have played with previously just completely shreds everything they know, which I think is a little insane to say for a team that does seem to have things in check for however long. And it's just like the tiniest little twinge of a difference just ruins everything.
Yeah. Considering earlier this week we're fighting for the top playoff spot in the division, if you are not a frequent watcher of the Leafs and you decided to put, like, Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada on the screen, and you watch the Leafs, you'd be like, how do they have as many wins as they do? Because they did not look tonight like they have looked for the last, I'm going to say, 10 games. They just didn't look like the same team. So we're going to move over to the overtime period. Make sure you get your questions in for Ruby and myself. Make sure you hit like and hit subscribe. Ruby's going to disappear like magic. And we are going to talk about the Game Over merchandise, some of which I am repping right now. I am warm, but I don't want to take this hoodie off because I couldn't be more comfortable. What a better way to support something that you love than by rocking its clothing. Game Over Toronto's apparel line is dropped with 3 unique designs. We have the nostalgic pullover of our retro skater design. That's this guy right here. There he is right there. Everybody's favorite robot face. Whether you want to deal with our live and die by the goalie design, or if you just need another coffee to get through winter, we have you covered. We just got a brand new set of toques. They're super comfortable and cozy, and all of our merch has been designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg, who is currently living over on the other side of the planet. You can use the QR code that's right below my face right here to take a look at the Game Over shop. We have a code, actually. I'm going to post it at the end of this video for some merch, I believe. Let me pull the thing up here. The merchandise right now, if you were to go on the Game Over website and use the special merch that I'm about to tell you, you're going to get, I think it's 10% off of whatever you order. So the Game Over, I've lost it now. That's great. Go, Lauren. The Game Over discount code for merch. I'm going to post it at the end of this video. I will make sure to do that. And please make sure you go check out the Game Over merch. It's super comfortable. It's super cozy. And I promise you will not regret buying it. And it would do us a great favor if you could, wear that when you go places. I actually wore my Game Over hat out the other day, and more than one person stopped to ask me about it. So please make sure you go follow this little QR code right down here. Let's bring Ruby back, and let's get over into our overtime period. Ruby is back on the screen, and we are going to talk about, what do you want to talk about in overtime, Ruby? We haven't gotten any really good questions yet, so.
I guess, in all, I want to talk about kind of Toronto's ability to really get to the playoffs this year and succeed. Obviously, we all know the little curse that we got going on, but I don't, at the start of the season, I really thought, I was watching them, and I thought they were well-rounded, and just this close to, especially the break coming up and everything, is just going to disrupt so much. I just don't think that they're showing as much promise as I would like them to. And I don't have the same sort of hope that I would every year.
Yeah, it's definitely less than ideal. At the beginning of, like you said, the season here, we had a lot of hope. And even now, they have shown flashes in the pan of greatness, of being able to rise above and win games that they haven't necessarily been able to in the past. Part of that has been the phenomenal goaltending that we've gotten. Tonight, Joseph Wool kind of struggled. It wasn't anything where I'm worried about it, and he's not Ilya Samsonov. He didn't, play any pranks on the Leafs tonight. And there were, that one goal, which one was? The Grizzly tip, that's almost impossible to block a proper tip. But, where was it here? The Bunting goal, that one back. That would have been nice to have back, Yeah,
and I noticed there's a few times where when that puck was bouncing around, he just flopped. There's too many close calls, I think. But I know that Pittsburgh does do a really good job of getting right in the goalie's eyesight. And that's exactly what we did too tonight with our goal too. So I just don't, it's really hard to block something when that happens. But when that puck's bouncing around and you don't keep a structured base going on and you can get knocked down so quickly, it does frustrate me. And I'm sitting there and I'm one of those people that's like, get up, what are you doing? I'm like, why are you flailing or whatever? Things are just not going the way you want to see. But obviously, I'm not a goalie. But it was a little stressful to watch how quickly Wool just was knocked down.
Yeah. Less than ideal, especially after he has had a little bit of injury history in the last couple of years. We do have a great question from David in the chat. Is it time for Berube to, figuratively speaking, go nuclear with the lines of this team? After 2 straight losses, both in regulation, isn't it time for some big changes to those lines? I think that part of the problem has been the line changes already.
Mm-hmm. I think that Toronto is almost at fault, used to what they have going on for them. If they cannot adapt to changes, that is an issue, especially with injuries. It shouldn't make that much of a difference, in all honesty, if you were a good balanced team. If one of your players gets injured and comes back, or if your coach wants to switch up a lineup, you should honestly be so knowledgeable about what your other teammates play like, and you should be able to react to those changes in a way that it's not going to be detrimental to your playoff position. And for some reason, the Leafs are just so focused on what they have, and they're not good with change.
No, not good with change. Really quickly before we sign off, I got the code. Go me. So if you go to the Game Over, we're going to pull up, Ruby's going to play Houdini and have a disappearing act again. If you scan this code right here and then she's back, and you go to the Game Over merch website, and you go and you want some of the winter products, including those fancy new hoodies, and you use the code capital G, capital O, with a capital H, and then lowercase holidays, so GO holidays, you're going to get 15% off of all of your winter products. The hoodies, which is this guy right here, go get you one of these, and then send us pictures in your merch, because we need all of that for Christmas. If you know of any Leafs fans and you want to get them into it, get them a hoodie, because then they're going to Google it, and then that gets more people, which is great. That's what we're trying to do. So make sure you hit that code over on the Leafs, on the Game Over merch site. Again, that is capital G, capital O, holidays, 15% off all of the winter products, the hoodies and the beanies, and there might be something special happening on Boxing Day. Now, Ruby, it was your first stream tonight, and before we sign off, why don't you tell all these wonderful people that are watching right now where everybody can find you?
Honestly, I haven't gotten all my socials figured out, but I'm on Instagram at ruby.zumak, and that's really all I got going for me right now for any social media that I want to put out there. But honestly, this was such a great experience, first stream, and I'm looking forward to working more with the Game Over Network. It was an amazing time.
It's been wonderful to have you. And you can follow the Game Over Leafs channel right down here. If you go and you click right down there, you can actually follow us. Make sure you hit the bell so you know when we go live. Normally, it's within a couple minutes of when the game ends, but you don't want to miss the beginning, because that's usually when I'm funniest. And make sure that you follow me on all my socials. You can follow me at Lauren6. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky. And all those links are down in the description of this video. And again, one last time, if you could hit like and subscribe, it would go a long way. Leafs drop a awful Saturday night game to the Pittsburgh Penguins with a 5-2 loss, with two shorthanded empty netters having 6-on-4 to end the game. Have yourself a great day, everybody. Enjoy your Sunday, and we will be back in a couple of games with Game Over Toronto. Have a great night, everybody.